Welcome back to the Grow Along, and today it's sweet peas. Good Lord, look at the sweet peas. All the side shoots are waking up. We've got spring sunshine white at the front here. This is all but blue. Can you see with the tiny outline of lilac? Sweet peas are a cool weather plant and they are triggered into flowering by light, but also temperature does play a part. For example, if we have a cool spring, we'll find that they'll flower ever so slightly later, and if we have a warm spring, they'll flower ever so slightly earlier. Can also get early flowering sweet peas. They are quite rare. The vast majority of sweet peas that you'll grow in your gardens will all flower around the trigger of 12 hours of daylight. However, the early flowering sweet peas need an hour less daylight to trigger flower initiation. We like to grow here the Spring Sunshine range, and the Spring Sunshine Champagne and Spring Sunshine White are my particular favourites. This is the early flowering variety. The scent coming off of it is incredible. I'm going to take a big bunch of these to do a photo pretty soon. But can you see how many flowers we've got compared to... These are the Spencers. They're going to be flowering just the same, but they're later flowering. They need 12 hours of daylight to initiate flowering, so they will catch up. You need both, in my opinion, because these bloom later and the others bloom first. Sweet peas are quite hardy, but not nearly as hardy as something like cornflowers, for example. So what we will do is we'll grow them in a cold greenhouse. That also protects them from the worst of the weather, so it will stop physical damage with them getting blown around with the winter storms. So here I've got my sweet pea seeds, and you might notice I've got a little ramekin of water because I'm going to give them a soak before I sow them in their pots. Peas have got quite a thick outer seed coat, so you can speed up the germination by soaking them in water before you sow them. This helps the water get past the outer coating of the seed and speeds up germination, but you don't have to. It just makes them germinate a little bit quicker. So if you haven't got time, or you think that you'll forget about them, then just sow them as you normally would. But if you're an impatient gardener like me, then you can just give them a little bath for a few hours before you start them. I'll put my label in first so I don't forget. Here are my seeds, so I'm just going to drop them in water for a soak for a few hours. In the spirit of Blue Peter, here are some that I soaked earlier, and can you see, look how much they've swollen up, which means the water has got past that outer coating and the seeds are now well on their way to germinating. So I'm going to be sowing 3 sweet peas in a 9 centimetre square pot, and I'm calling it a 9 centimetre pot because look, if I measure the top you can see it's 9 centimetres square. It's actually 10 centimetres tall. Now these are just standard pots, they're nothing special, but I just want you to bear this in mind. Please don't sow 3 sweet peas in any pots that are smaller, and certainly not any more shallow than these, because otherwise they will struggle to survive until planting out time next spring. You don't want a pot that's any more shallow than that is as we get towards late winter, before the weather conditions allow us to plant them out, they could run out of space. And if they run out of room in their pot, what will happen is the foliage will start to go yellow as the roots hit the bottom of the pot, and in severe cases they could start to die. So don't use smaller pots than the 10 centimetre depth. By all means go bigger if you don't have that exact size. So I'm just going to dip a little hole. I'm going to keep the holes as far away from each other as I can in the pot, where they've still got a good amount of compost all around, and just drop them in. There we go. Give them a little tap to make sure they're in good contact with the compost and water. Pea seeds are toxic to humans, so just make sure that if you are sowing your sweet peas with the little ones, then make sure that they don't put them anywhere near their mouth. Maybe they can be in charge of dibbing the holes while you drop the sweet peas in the pot. You can, if you want to, water your pots from underneath, but as we've soaked the sweet peas, I think it's sensible just to give them a quick overhead water. So I've watered these, and you can see the compost is nice and moist, and I won't water them again unless they absolutely need it. If you're not sure, just lift your pots, and if they're light, they probably need watering, and if they're nice and heavy like this one, then they don't. Mustn't leave your pots on the floor in your greenhouse, because rodents such as mice love sweet pea seeds and they will pinch them. So what you want to do is you want to put them up on a shelf which has got an overhang, so no legs that they can scramble up, and then that way they'll be safe. I'll show you my shelves in the greenhouse now. So here is my setup in the greenhouse, and you can see this is my standard greenhouse staging, and it's been designed that it doesn't have any legs for any rodents to scramble up. Got a shelf like mine in the greenhouse and you're worried about your sweet peas getting pinched, you can germinate them in the house, but just keep a really close eye on them, check them every day. The minute you see green shoots appearing, you must get them out into your cold greenhouse for two reasons. Number one, the heat in your house will encourage them to germinate and grow much more quickly, so you need to slow that growth down. And number two is there won't be enough light, even on your brightest windowsill. And what will happen is the sweet peas will grow upwards in search of that light, and you'll end up with leggy plants. Now there is quite a lot to say on sweet peas. I mean, we are growing them for really best part of a year by starting them now and then flowering into the next summer. That's quite a long time, and there's lots of steps along the way. So rather than jam everything into the one video, if you go to my website, you'll find a series of videos. So this is video number 1, Autumn Jump Starter. Each step that we go along, there'll be a separate video explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then don't forget, in addition to all of that, you've got the real-time growing on my Instagram stories, where you can look over my shoulder in the greenhouse and see exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, if you wanted to quickly check anything, you've got your Autumn Jump Starter handbook, and we've got 2 whole pages on the subject of sweet peas.